Has Bill Maher finally woken up? I don't think we've ever seen such a stark admission from him at just how far the modern left is going on issues like gender, and how that at least partly explains why so many people in droves are turning to a figure like Donald Trump. But don't be thinking he's just saying that off the cuff, because there's an entire evolution you can track from almost 5 years ago that I need to show you. First, watch him silence Adam Schiff and Seth MacFarlane with one brief sentence so you know exactly how it went down.
The Atlantic put out an article last year, and it was called "Separating Sports by Sex Doesn't Make Sense." Right. And talked about how we separate sports like the WNBA and the, just because it's just socialization. This is insane.
I agree.
Okay. That's why people vote for Trump. Mm-hmm. Because there's stuff like that on the left that people just go, I know Trump's horrible, but separating by sports by sex makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. And if you think it doesn't, you can't leave the country.
But that's cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Okay. I'm just giving you the answer to the question you're asking all night long. Why do they vote for Donald Trump? It's not always because they like him. No, it's because stuff like that is kookier to them.
Could you believe that? Considering that he's a longtime liberal icon, Bill Maher admitting the modern left is kookier than someone like Donald Trump, who he called a crazy, stupid criminal, certainly gives you a window into how big a shift he's had in recent times, and I don't think there's any particular issue or incident that's enough on its own. It's things like the trans bathroom in sports debate, the critical race theory, the porous borders, and gender transition for minors that's making him realize this is not the left he used to stand for. I think it was Ben Shapiro back in 2018 when he spoke to Bill Maher that he said that he would consider voting Democrat if the party would stop being insane. Bill wasn't happy with that characterization and almost shot back at his chair before firing back, and yet perhaps now 6 years later he's realizing that in modern America, it may really be a question of which side is relatively less insane, or in other words, Americans are having to choose between which side of the political spectrum in the country is not as far off the center as the other. That's a pretty bleak choice, to be honest, and one that's not going to spell great things for our democracy. But that doesn't mean the 74 million voters that came out in support of Donald Trump in 2020 are actively supporting every last character trait or policy position over perhaps just being afraid of what the other side is offering them. And you know why I'm so confident saying that? It's truly incredible how fast America's Overton window has shifted just in the last 5 years, and it's evidenced by this conversation where Bill Maher laughs off and ridicules Dennis Prager's statement that the idea of menstruating men is about to become a mainstream assertion on part of trans activists. Watch this incredible clip from 2019.
These are giant left-wing lies.
We're talking about degrees.
To say that men can menstruate is a lie, and that is what is said.
Wait, where did that
You never heard it, right? Okay, check it out, folks. Check it out. Anyone who says a man cannot menstruate is considered transphobic.
I missed this whole story.
You did? I did.
Tell me where you're getting this.
Just Google it. Can men menstruate?
Who is saying this? You're talking about a very small percentage.
Oh, really? Then how do you allow men, biological men, to run against women in the races in Connecticut and set all the high school records?
Okay, but that's...
they're called men.
Moving on to the next. Dennis, I remember you in the old show, you were a little more reasonable.
What did I say that wasn't unreasonable?
You said that we think that men menstruate and no one does.
I bet Bill Maher looks back at that and realizes how late he was in catching up to where America was headed. He called it a tiny minority of people 5 years ago, but polls now reveal that 72% of Democrats under the age of 30 believe men and women can just identify with whichever they want regardless to biological sex, naturally leading to supporting the statement that men can potentially menstruate. If anything, there's a lesson there that things that may seem outlandish to us right now should always be expected and prepared for. When you look at all of this going on with one side of the political aisle, a lot of people are bound to feel like they're living in an alternate reality where nothing even makes sense. That's the feeling of eerie uncertainty that's making people retreat to someone like Donald Trump in the Republican Party, because at least there's something that they recognize and make sense of, even if they don't like it. In fact, it's actually been shown as a psychological truism that when a population is going through a period of rapid change on any issue or cultural value, There's a counterwave produced in the opposite side with people trying to go back to the safety of older values and trying to conserve what is familiar and known. Imagine being a parent, for example, if you and your partner work a job and your child spends a lot of their time in school, in the daycare, or on the internet. They're likely growing up learning a lot of these new age ideas, and you find yourself helpless at pulling your child back if that's not what you want for them. You don't even need to be on either side of the trans debate to be able to observe and recognize the train of thoughts and feelings that a parent may go through. And now imagine how they must feel when someone like Donald Trump comes along saying these brisk and unapologetic statements.
I will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they are assigned at birth. The bill will also make clear that Title IX prohibits men from participating in women's sports, and we will protect the rights of parents from being forced to allow their minor child to assume a gender which is new and an identity without the parents' consent. The identity will not be new, and it will not be without parental consent. No serious country should be telling its children that they were born with the wrong gender, a concept that was never heard of in all of human history. Nobody's ever heard of this, what's happening today.
That is what explains why Trump as a political figure is still relevant. It's not because he's got crazy quirks of his own, but because he at least comes across as someone with ideas that people still recognize. Ideologically, it's the comfortable known versus the cold and alien unknown. And it's incredible because a lot of the modern left is shooting itself in the foot by giving Donald Trump an edge like this. An edge that arguably he doesn't even deserve, because it distracts from a host of other things that the Republican base could alternatively be focused on with him before the election. So for people like Bill Maher, I think it's a realization to him that millions of people may less be voting for something and more against something. Or at least that may be part of the explanation, though still a powerful one. Bill in recent times has certainly come out of a shell, especially in the last 2 years. You see him criticizing his own liberal friends while realizing that he's standing relatively right than he did 5 years ago. But it's not because he's moved, it's because the cultural pendulum has swung so far that a liberal like Bill Maher seems like a far sight. That's not good for a country like the United States, where political dialogue and moderate voices are one of only a few controversial bridges between the left and right that are still left. And I think that's why this conversation is such a flag in the timeline of Bill Maher's TV history, where he woke up to the fact that while he stood firm on the left of center, he still found himself alone and the rest of his ideological allies had moved much further in that direction. The clip you watch from him is an example of Bill Maher trying to make sense of this new political place that he finds himself in.